Nancy Rynes was an atheist before her near-death experience, and when she found herself alive on the other side, she expected she would be sent to hell for being an atheist. What actually happened will blow your mind. Listen in on our conversation today to find out. When I first met Jamie of Refractive Healing, I was coming out of a very challenging time. I felt anxious, overwhelmed, disconnected from myself, from Source, and from my divine guidance. But during my first session with Jamie, something shifted. In the safe space created by Jamie's presence and healing intuitive gifts, I was able to receive a clear message from my guides for the first time in months. Every day you guys ask me the same question: how can I connect to my guidance? I would like to share this gift with you. A simple and effective way that I was able to reconnect with my guidance is by booking a distance healing session with Jamie of Refractive Healing. Click here or check the pinned comment for the link. Thank you to Jamie of Refractive Healing for partnering with me in this video.
Before I had the NDE, I was an atheist, agnostic. It was a little bit more than skepticism. A true skeptic is someone who's questioning and open, to explanations. But I was kind of past that. I didn't really believe in anything, and people couldn't really tell me that there was something, and I would not believe them. It was during surgery where my main NDE happened. When they brought me in, they gave me general anesthetic, and I remember starting to drift off, and the nurses and doctors were talking, and I remember all that. And then I drifted off, but instead of going to that kind of what I call that gray state of nothingness that we experienced during general anesthesia, I woke up, not in the OR, but I woke up standing up on a hillside, and I thought, whoa, this is weird. This is really weird. Maybe I'm hallucinating. That was my first thought. Maybe I'm hallucinating. But then I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm under general anesthesia. And I'm thinking all this stuff. So anybody who knows about general anesthesia knows when you get general anesthesia, and they also gave me an amnesia drug so I couldn't remember, your brain isn't functioning this well. And it's intended to shut your brain down, not to heighten its awareness. And so I'm thinking all this stuff like, I wonder if I'm hallucinating, what's going on? And I'm thinking, and then I'm realizing that, wait a minute, this is different. I'm feeling a lot of peace and love. How can I feel love? I'm feeling love coming through me as if it was like, I always liken it to standing in front of a fireplace on a warm or on a cold winter's day. That radiant heat that comes through you from a fire. That's what this love felt like. And I knew it was love because I had never felt this level of love from anyone before. Like, this was big, really, really big, and very welcoming and so peaceful. I just wanted to melt into it. And I felt as if, somebody was just holding me, not literally, but I felt like I was being cradled almost and welcomed and accepted. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't like any surgery I've been in before, because I've had several. Nothing like this ever happened. I was always just out cold in that gray state and then woke up in the recovery room. Never had anything like this happen. And I'm kind of looking around and I'm seeing like trees and mist and, mountains in the distance, but still that love is there. And then I started to wonder, I wonder if I died on the operating table. And if I did die, I'm looking around like, why am I here? My parents told me I'd end up in a place a lot warmer than this. And I thought to myself, well, if this is what happens after we die, I'm pretty cool with that. But then I started that feeling of unworthiness crept up, and I didn't feel worthy of this place I was in. Like, I've really messed up in my life. I became an atheist. I don't believe in any of this. Why am I here? And then there was a voice that came. It didn't really come into my ears. It was really a heart voice, more like a feeling and it was a voice, but not the way that we experience words. And this voice, the meaning of this voice was in answer to that question of why am I here? And it said, you are my child. You're a part of me. You're a part of this. You're a part of me. This is your home. Welcome home. And I'm going to cry again because it's just so, every time I tell someone that story, it's like so powerful. And in an instant, like that, just that instant, my heart melted and I remembered, oh yeah, that earth life, that wasn't really home. This existence, whatever, we'll talk about that, I guess, but whatever this is, this spiritual place, this is home. And I'm a part of all of this. And it wasn't a crisp memory. Like I didn't all of a sudden remember everything, but I remembered a lot of stuff. And just the sense that, yes, it's like, this is where I belong. This is my home. And I didn't want to leave. Immediately, I didn't want to go back to this life. It's hard to say time because time doesn't really exist there the same way it does here. But it seemed like it was just a few moments. I had a visitor. There was a female-looking figure that came up kind of from my right side. And honestly, it looked like she just kind of materialized out of the mist, like in some, really cool special effects. But she just materialized kind of out of the fog and walked up to me. Now, the other funky thing about her, I could see that she was a little bit taller than my view of my body. I mean, I had a sense of a body, but it wasn't really this, human body here. But I still carried a sense of a humanness with me. And so I saw her as a vaguely human looking spiritual, I could just call it spiritual being. And she looked to be a little bit taller than me with very long, very dark hair. Her skin was kind of a mix of all of our races. It was just a middle toned, kind of everything mixed together. So that wasn't like she was Caucasian or African or Asian or whatever. It was kind of just, I hate to say the word generic, but basically a mix of everyone. And the funky thing, though, is that and I got the feeling that she wasn't allowing me, but she was not allowing me to see her face. No matter how hard I tried, and boy, I tried, I couldn't see her face. It was always just a little blurry, like I wasn't allowed to see the details, or as if it wasn't really all that important. And I think it was more of the latter, like it wasn't really all that important that I attach a specific look, to her face. It was more important that I just learn. And that's what she told me she was here with me to do, was to teach me what I needed to know in order to come back here to this life and make it the life that I would want to live and to change it and to be helpful to people, just to improve myself, basically at a second chance, to get my stuff together, to live the life that I wanted to live and not be kind of off the rails in a life that I didn't want to live. So I was stuck, though, on the before you go back. I did not want to come back here. And I was very adamant about that through my whole experience. And for me, that whole experience felt like it lasted kind of the equivalent of about 2 to 3 months of Earth time. So what I mean by that is, in order for on Earth, for everything to do everything that I did with her would take the equivalent of about 2 to 3 months here. So that's why I call it my semester in heaven, because that's what it felt like. It was about a semester, and it was nothing but teaching. And luckily I remembered all of it after the surgery, so it wasn't wasted. But she taught me things like, what the nature of divine love, how to be more loving and more present in my life, how to cultivate connections with other people, and we're not just talking superficial lessons here. It's really deep stuff that she was talking about. So yes, there are superficial lessons that people can take away from what I learned. But I mean, even I go back through this material and reread it and get new, deeper stuff for myself each time I read it. And then I'm able to kind of strengthen my own spiritual core. But the most important thing that she wanted to teach me was love. And that love, divine love, love for each other, love for our planet, love for ourselves, love for the entire universe. That is, if we don't take away anything else, that is the most important thing that we can work on in this life, is just expanding our capacity to not only love the divine, to love ourselves, truly deeply love ourselves, because most of us don't. And also to love each other truly deeply in the way that the divine extends that love to us. And that was the most important. She talked about a lot of other things that really meshed with that, like our power of choice, how our words and actions affect other people, how they affect the world around us, whether we believe it or not. Everything we say and do affects someone, even if it's just us. So we have to start to learn to focus our thoughts, be cautious of what we say and how we treat other people. All of that is really important. And I spent so long with her there, and I'm just trying to, I'm worried that I'm going to forget everything because it's so much. But she said, don't worry. You'll absolutely remember all of it, not to worry. And I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to remember this, but okay, well, I can only take you for your word, because I don't have a notebook that I can carry with me. It's all, crammed in here and in here. And then after, this 2 or 3 months, she finally turned to me and said, I need to send you back, because I've got other stuff I need to do. And you need to go back to your life and continue on. And I threw a temper tantrum to, kind of like a 2-year-old, truly like a 2-year-old, screaming and not wanting to go back. And I was afraid that my body would be paralyzed, that I'd have to deal with, tons of physical impairments and, wow. I was really feeling sorry for myself in that moment. She did what I call a little bit of a spiritual healing. So she kind of laid her hand on my collarbone. I had broken right out here this distal end of my left collarbone. And it was really painful. And I had broken my sternum, cracked it up here, up at the top end, and then broke 5 ribs on my left side. And she just did like a laying on of hands almost on those areas, and then sent me back to my body, basically kicking and screaming. But when, over the course of the next couple of days, I started to realize, well, wait a minute, those things don't hurt anymore. She had taken away all the pain. She didn't necessarily heal those wounds outright right away, but they certainly didn't hurt anymore. And the cracked ribs did not hurt at all, which kind of freaked out my doctors. It freaked out me because those things really hurt when they're broken. But, she took away a lot of that pain, which made healing a lot easier for me. I wrote my book a couple years later, and then I, spent another couple of years during this time I was continuing to really just learn and kind of put the NDE into practice in my daily life. So I was literally focused on taking all those lessons and like wringing every little bit of information out of it for myself that I could, and incorporating that into my life just because I knew I needed to. I mean, if I'm here, I was given this opportunity, I'm not going to blow it. I wanted to really learn how to live love every day as much as I could. I wanted to learn how to extend love to other people, to myself, all of that. So that's what I worked on for the next, few years, until I'm going to talk a little bit about the second NDE, which I haven't really spoken about too much. It happened in December of 2017. I had taken right before Christmas, I went on a trip I was living at that time in Seattle, and had taken a trip to Chicago that's kind of where I grew up. So I wanted to go back and just revisit, see some friends, see the city. I love the city, and just to reacquaint myself with it. But on the way back, I think I picked up some kind of a virus or something. And about a day later, this was over Christmas, I noticed I was starting to feel kind of congested in my right lung, and feverish, and not feeling good. And by about 4 hours later, I was really not feeling good. I was running like 102, 103 fever, basically out of it, and very, very challenged to breathe. My breathing was very labored and very shallow. I don't know why I didn't go into the ER that evening. I did not. But I went the next morning because I still was having trouble breathing. I was passing out left and right. I mean, I couldn't stand up. So I got got into the ER, and my blood pressure was super low. My heart rate was like below 40, which is not good. It was at one point it was down in the 20s, which is also not really good. And unfortunately for me, it was the Tacoma, one of the Tacoma hospitals, very busy ER that morning. They had like several car accidents and some gunshot wounds. And I was not high on the priority list because they had people that were obviously needing help quicker than me. So they put me into it was in an ER room, but they had to go, the doc and the nurse and, 2 of the nurses had to go off and attend to a gunshot wound. And so I was left there. I was hooked up to the heart rate monitor, or I should say the pulse ox. It wasn't the heart rate monitor yet. And just kind of laying there waiting for them to come in. And I noticed that I wasn't feeling my feet anymore. And it was as if I was going numb from my extremities in. Like all of a sudden my hands didn't exist anymore and my arms didn't exist anymore. And I couldn't feel my upper legs, and then I couldn't feel my torso, and I was barely breathing. And I started to lose my hearing. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear the beep of the machines. And then I went blind. I couldn't see anything out of my eyes. And I'm just laying there like, wonder what's going on. And then all of a sudden, I just very gently floated up out of my body. And I looked down, and there's my body, laying on the table. And I'm floating about halfway up between my body and the ceiling. And I remember thinking, well, I guess this is the way most people die. They don't normally, die in a car accident like me or on the operating table. Most people just kind of like gently float up and, that's pretty cool. And then I started feeling that love again. I felt like I was being cradled again. I'm like, I remember this part. This is pretty cool. So I remember the love, I'm feeling the love, and I'm feeling the peace. And just about as I'm ready to really kind of go up through that tunnel that a lot of people talk about, that voice comes back. Darn that voice. That voice came back that I mentioned in the first one. And this time the voice said, it's your choice to stay or to go. Which will it be? Just very matter of fact, giving me the option to leave and completely die this time, or to stay and be in this life again, to basically have another second chance at life. So I guess that would be my third chance. I don't know how many of these I get, by the way, so I don't know if I'm done or not. And I didn't really even answer with a voice. It was, I had this sense that there were two things coming up if I chose to stay. One of those things would involve family, and that my family would need me. But that it would be okay if I chose to go, like everything would be okay, but here's this thing that you might want to, be there for. And then there was some kind of a very vague notion of a project. I'm still not exactly sure what it is, even a little bit more than 3 years later, but I had a sense that there was a big creative project that I wanted to do before I truly left this life. And as soon as I made that, there was a choice that I made with my heart. It wasn't with my mind. It was with my heart. It was mostly for my family. When I sensed that my family would need me, it was like automatically, well, I'm not going yet. As much as I want to, I'm not going yet. So as soon as I made that choice, I was literally slammed like that back into my body. It was really bizarre, just being like pushed back down in. And I woke up and I was fine. And I'm looking around like, I remember coming in, but I don't really feel bad now. Why am I here? And it was just a few moments later, the doc came in because they had taken some basic chest x-rays before they had to go off and attend to the gunshot wound. And they came back in and they're like, well, you're only working on a quarter of one lung here. And we're thinking we're going to have to admit you, because I had pneumonia, like it came on like that. And they said, well, your left lung is completely incapacitated, and you've only got a little bit of your right lung that's functioning well. I'm like, but I feel fine now. And I was insisting that I felt fine. My fever had broken, by the way, in that just short span of time. And they noted that, and I could see the doctor like, what the heck is going on? I go away to attend to a gunshot wound and somehow that cures you. And so she checked me again, and she must have listened to my lung like a half a dozen times, both lungs. And she's like, I don't hear any issues now. So they sent me back in for another chest x-ray and everything was cleared.
Wow.
Yeah. Which freaked kind of like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. I've never heard of a healing that quick. And she was like, didn't know what to make of that. And she's like, well, I guess I don't have any reason to keep you here. If, you know, you don't have a fever, you're breathing fine, your pulse ox is looking better. It wasn't, you know, recovered fully yet, but and my oxygen saturation was getting better. My pulse was back up to kind of normal, and my lungs look good. And she's like, I don't really have any reason to keep you here now, but so I'll send you home. If if you're feeling sick, call us again. So I went home, and within a few hours, I mean, I wasn't even coughing after this, nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know I've got to, whatever I just chose to come back and do, whatever that was, I know that I have a big purpose to come back. So the second one was really all about me really fully embracing and choosing this life. Because the first time I felt like the choice had been taken from me, like I was forced to come back here. The second time, I really embraced being here and doing whatever it is, that I'm supposed to do, even if it's just to love. And that was the gift really of the second one, was having the opportunity to choose to really be here, to deepen my presence, to deepen my own spiritual connection to what I call the divine. A lot of people would call God. To really fully, deeply, more passionately embrace, this spiritual side of me, because it is me. It's a part of all of us too. So the second one is really a gift, in a way that it was a gift of choice for me to really, again, deepen my presence here and to really connect with my life in a way that I hadn't before. So yes, in the last 3 years since then, I've kind of branched out and done some other things, but I've talked now for 50 minutes. So if you want to ask stuff, please feel free. I don't want to, usurp your own podcast here.
Oh no, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It's a little bit different every time you tell it. So I was really blessed by that. And also getting to hear your second near-death experience was awesome. Just a couple things. First, I wanted to note that during your first near-death experience, when you learned all of these lessons, you put those in your book, Awakenings from the Light, correct? Because a lot of people will probably be curious about that. And I found that book to be extremely practical and helpful. Okay. So, I loved it, and I highly recommend it. You can read it and learn all about what Nancy was taught in her time in heaven. The other thing that I want to mention before we go here, the quote that I heard you say so many years ago when I first found your story, that was just mind-blowing to me, because I was raised from a very strict Christian background where we were taught God is this being outside of you and heaven is a place that you go when you die. But you said in your experience, you saw that love was the structure. I think you said the structure that made up heaven, but it's also the structure that makes up everything here on earth too. And you said, it's here. It's not somewhere else. It's right here. And we can learn to tap into that. So that thing that those of us raised in religion are taught to spend our whole lives chasing, it's right here. It's all around us. And then I also heard you speaking in an interview that you had come up with some better words to describe it, and you used the words crystalline lattice structure. Would you like to talk about that for just a few minutes?
Sure. Yeah, that was an interesting thing. So that whole love teaching that I was given was really beautiful. And I did put a lot of it in my book, Awakenings from the Light. the crystalline structure really started when, my teacher was trying to teach me about what divine love was and how big it was. And so she showed me kind of like in the sky, sort of a projection on the sky of, that divine love being a giant diamond or a giant crystal. And that's this huge, like, universe of divine love is like a giant crystal. And each one of, when we love someone here, or when we have love for, our pets or family members, or even the divine God, that's like one facet on this entire, universal kind of crystal. But I was also shown kind of a representation of what that divine love looked like in that structure. So she said, like you just described, the structure of heaven is built on love, but also the structure of this earthly realm is also built on love. The physical is built on that divine love. And she showed me this kind of a vision of what that looked like, kind of down at, I think, like the nano level, like the really tiny, minuscule level. And it really looked like almost like a crystal. So if you were to take, I don't have any crystals here with me. I'm a geologist, by the way, so I've got rocks all around me. But if you look at like a quartz crystal or something, and you were to zoom in on it and zoom in on it and zoom in on it with like an electron microscope, you'd see each crystal has a very regular pattern of what we call a crystalline lattice structure. And it's what it is are energy bonds of all the different little atoms and molecules within that crystal. So like if there's two, atoms here, they bond themselves together via electromagnetic force. But what she showed me was that electromagnetic force that it forms the lattice work of crystals here, you can think of that as the lattice work of the entire universe, not just this physical universe that we perceive of as physical, not just that spiritual part of the universe, but all of it. And it looks, everyone is connected to everyone else in this lattice structure via these, that divine love energy. It's that energy of divine love that binds us all together. And it forms like this regular, to me, it looked a little bit cubic, but it was actually not three-dimensional. It was multi-dimensional. And I knew it was more than 3 dimensions because it wasn't looking exactly 3D to me. And, I've done a lot of geology work and I've done a lot of crystallography, and I could tell that what I was seeing wasn't 3 dimensions. I found out later from one of my readers, because I had described this lattice structure and all of those energy bonds that go back and forth, not just amongst all of us, but just in general that make up this universe around us. And it turns out what I was seeing was either 8 or 9 dimensional. It wasn't 3D. I was experiencing it as a 3D person, as 3 dimensions, but it was actually 8 or 9 dimensional. And to me, they both look very similar. So I can't distinguish them from, this physical body, but it was definitely an 8 or 9D geometry that I was seeing kind of projected into a 3-dimensional awareness. Mm-hmm. And I knew that it was like a multi-dimensional spider web, but the spider's webs were of energy. And it was that energy of love that connected us all together, but not just as people. It was also the rocks, the trees, the animals, the planets, the stars, everything, not just humans. And that was like a big revelation for me. Like, whoa, wait a minute, we're connected to all of it? All of it. And not just, people on this planet necessarily. Now, I don't know about if there's any beings out there in the universe, but the implication is that it doesn't matter where that other being is. We're all somewhat connected in some way. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation of it, but it's all just that pervasive energy field. I consider it now like an energy field of what I call divine love. Some people call it like a divine consciousness, and that could be another term for it, or the divine matrix. But there are several different terms that all describe that same interconnected, universal, loving energy that connects us all together.
I heard you say that that when we're loving to each other and to the world, that we strengthen that structure or that field.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have the ability to interact with that on a daily basis, even if there's no one around you. Like here right now, I'm living by myself. And so when I wake up in the morning, it doesn't matter that there's no one else here. I can still interact with that field of love just by starting off my day, with loving intentions, with prayers, with, reading spiritual texts or spiritual, books or something like that. So I set myself up for success at the beginning of every day and just try to strengthen that field of love around me from the get-go, from the time I get up in the morning.
Nancy's link to her book and her websites are in my description. You'll also find the link to my Love Covered Life Sanctuary Pay What You Can community. This month specifically, we're going to be doing a manifestation challenge following Joe Dispenza's manifestation steps, since so many of you have been asking me about that. Thank you for watching, and go live your most extravagantly loving life.